Okay, this is wall number 3. And this would be the back wall. And I've done some considerations and layouts, but I thought this visual would help as well. So if I've got my window wall here, I'm going to stand that up. And I've got my side wall here. They're both 12 foot in real life, 12 inches on paper, or 1/12 scale. And I'm going to match this up over here to my 8x12 dance floor. Now my space in between here is what I need for a back wall. So I'm going to stand some studs up here. It's an 8-foot back wall, but the wall itself is not going to be 8 feet because I am losing the distance or the width of the wall on each side. I have to subtract that out. So remember, EC, Essential Craftsman, we can lay down a couple boards here to cut for a top and bottom plate and use this as a scribe. We can just mark our boards. Now these happen to be pre-cuts that I'm shortening, but you could also use a 12-foot piece or a 12-inch piece as well. So I'm going to mark it there, make my X, and I need another one to do the same. However I want to do that, I can transfer as well. So let's do that. We'll line up the ends here, flush these ends, there, and now transfer my marks. And I've got a couple cuts to make. Okay. So these become my top and my bottom plate. Okay, so I've got my top and bottom plate cut here. They fit in between my 12-foot wall sections evenly, and they make up the difference here between that overall 8-foot span. So 8 foot, if I subtract out my distance on each side, these ended up being 6.5 inches. 3/4 of an inch is the actual plate width in scale, and in real life it would be 3.5 inches. If it was a 2x6, it would be 5.5 inches. Okay, layout wise, I've done this because this is how our current 8x12 shed has laid out its back wall. They started with their stud on the left-hand side, and then they went 24 inches on center from there. I'm inside the 8x12 shed here, the one that we have constructed, and I want to talk about a few things, but it's going to be hard to talk over this air handler. That's what's making all the noise, so I apologize in advance. We're talking about the back wall here, and we can see right here that we're laid out. Spacing is even here until we get to the end. So what did we do and why did we do it? Well, if we're going to have an 8x12 dance floor, and we've got our side walls built to full length, 12 foot, which is what we did, then our wall that is on the back and the front can't be 8 feet because it would push those side walls out. Let's just take a look at layout here and see what we did. We had to put a corner stud in really for interior. If we wanted to finish out interior, it makes it a little easier, and to make the wall section. Exterior wise, this actually laps over past this stud and it meets at this corner. So it wouldn't be necessary for that, but like in a house or residence, if we wanted to do drywall, we'd need one here, but we'd also need a corner stud here that we could put drywall or finish onto. And that's called a California corner because it makes a C. You'd have to, because it makes a C out here this way and then over the back. And that way you have a nailing surface in the corner, on both sides of the corner, if that makes sense. So layout wise, if I hook on here, I'm hitting right in the center at 24 on my first one, 48 on my second one, 6 foot, 72 on my third. Take a look at what I end at here, 89. Why that number? Where did that come from? How did it end up being 89 to the outside? So what they chose to do was keep it 24 on center all the way across. Let me see if I can zoom out here. Because their materials are meeting on the joint. So take a look at this right here. This is our seam for our standardized sheet material, and that lines up with our 24 on center. So we've got a nailer on either side there. This is kind of how we've learned to do this thus far. The problem with this model is if I actually put these in here and I put sheet material on the back side, I'm going to start that sheet material flush with the outside edge of the wall. So my layout is not actually going to work out that well. My sheet material is going to end up coming up somewhere in here between studs. So the proper way to do this, in order to be efficient with the materials I'm using, is to look at laying out my studs so they meet on the center point or the center line of those common materials. So what I've got is I got some Marnatelli's sheets from a pizza. I took cardboard from Marnatelli's and I cut it into a 4x8 sheets, or 4" by 8" sheets. And if I was going to sheathe this exterior wall, put sheathing on, I would sheathe it to the outside of the 12-foot wall. And then what I'm talking about here is I want my stud, my wall stud, my pre-cut, to line up and share between two sheets of sheet material. Throw my second sheet up here. This place is going to look sponsored. Sweet. And you get what I'm saying here. I want this to share. So if I'm going to do stud layout based on that, I can lay my pieces in here, lay my top and bottom cord in. I'm sorry, they're my top and bottom plate. And then I could pull and measure over 24 inches on center each direction. I know that I want a stud to hit at 4 feet or 48 inches on center. So I can mark this, and then I would go 1/8 inch either side here to mark where my stud would be. That's my center point. Remember the center point symbol there. And I've got a stud, there we go. I've got 1/8 inch on either side to show my overall stud thickness. Boom. Cover it up, nail it. So going back from here, I'm going to have another stud that is going to be at the 2-foot on center. And then my third one, do I need one here? Well, I've got exterior material here to nail to, so if I put my sheeting up here, I'm going to be able to nail into the corner here. That's not a problem. Do I need a third one in the corner? Only if I was going to finish out the interior of this with sheetrock or something. That's where we talked about we need that nailing surface on the inside here in order to put material up on the inside and have something to nail into. But for this back wall, we should be able to get away with 3 studs. 1, 2, and a third one here. This third one will just be centered, 24 inches on center as well, at the 6-foot mark. There's our center mark. I'll mark that, and I'll go out 1/8 inch either way, and that'll be my stud right there. I can transfer my marks over to my top plate, so I've got a matching set, and I'll be able to glue that wall up.